Right, so introduction to personality profiles and how they might be useful in groups. So this is a bit of an insight, hopefully, into how people think, and therefore how you might consider how they think, and then how you might be able to present what you want to say in maybe a slightly different way to get their buy-in. And it was one of the most interesting courses that I did when I was an undergraduate many years ago now. And instead of having one lecture on it, we had a whole module on it. They thought it was so important, and it has been one of the most useful things. This sort of psychology and how groups and teams operate has been really useful. So hopefully I can get some of that interest over to you. So in this lecture we're going to be talking about personality profiles, what's it all about, their history, what are the main personality classifications, and we'll discover there are, well, in this particular classification there are 16 of them. There are lots of different ways of doing it though. How these personality types see themselves, and also how others may see them. Can you identify the main traits of these personality types easily, so you can understand how they're thinking, and can you moderate your behaviour to work effectively with them then? So this leads us to a key question of what are you in terms of personality? Because if you don't know what you are, no point understanding what someone else is like. You need to know about the interactions between the two. So to do that, we have to do a test, and you take a profile, and I'll show you how to do that. You're not going to do it now, but I'll show you how you can go away and do that, find out what you are, and then you can take that information and do what you like with it, really. But I'll give you some suggestions about what might happen. And so if you understand this, it may help groups to operate more efficiently. So we're a bit late in the day for that, for these groups, but what it allows you to do is look at how your group did operate, apply some of this theory, and say, is there something I could have done differently? Is it now obvious to me that this other person that we didn't get on with was this different personality type, and if only we'd presented the information in a slightly different way, it would have all been fine. Yeah. So it's something to write about in your individual reports now. It has been used for career-based advice. People have done these tests, career advisors, done tests on you, and then told you what sort of careers you should be going to. How successful it is, I don't really know, but there we go. So what is type? So originally this was all put together by Young a while ago, and he analysed the way people take in and then process and organise information. And he put this together in this sort of theory of personality, and said, you know, what appears to be random behaviour is actually the result of differences in the way people prefer to use their mental capacities. So it's not just random, there's some method to the madness of how people are thinking. And this was taken up in the Second World War by these two, mother and daughter team. And they came up with this sort of Briggs-Myers type indicator, or the MBTI, as it says there in the last paragraph. And this is turned into one of the most widely used psychological assessments in the world, and has been validated in over 8,000 research studies. Although psychologists are still arguing about it, it's a bit like astrology in some ways. It's not gospel, and some of the personality types will interpret it as gospel, but that's because of the personality type they are. So you've got to remember that this is guidance only, really. But one of the things that most people are agreed on in the psychology world is the persistence of type. So your personality type is generally ingrained. You are of a certain type of personality. And it does not change over time. But the strength of your preferences may change as you have life experiences, or as you experience new situations, and as you go through life. So you'll find yourself in type, but you may change your feeling, your view, depending on the culture around you and how the culture is changing as well, and what you've actually experienced as you go through life. So, as we go through this, keep in mind that each type of personality is equally valid, or not better than the other or anything else, and it does not assess these things, which are usually regarded as being important things to have. So it does not assess intelligence or aptitude or skill or even normalcy. So how normal are you? No such thing as normal. So just bear that in mind, okay, as you go through it. Everything is equally valid. So we have these 4 dimensions of personality. And they're on a sort of a scale. So it's a 4-dimensional scale, if you can imagine such a thing. You know, 3 dimensions, we can sort of envision as 4, it's starting to get a bit troublesome. Any computer scientists here, you'll have no trouble with like 128 dimensions probably. But we've got 4 to worry about here. Going from extroversion and introversion being one scale, E to A to I. And this is sort of where you get your energy from. Sensing, intuition is another scale that we've got. Thinking and feeling, we'll go through these in a bit more detail in a minute. And judging and perceiving. So, where you are on this gives you sort of a matrix of 16 possible sort of extremes, if you like. And that's basically where personality comes from. Where do you fit on these 4 scales? So it's like a spider diagram in 4 dimensions. That's where you are. And they have these wonderful abbreviations that you may or may not have come across, but you might certainly see them as you go on through your careers, like ISTJ, and that all relates to these letters here. So if you take extroversion, you'd be an E. A sensing person, you'd be an S. If you're a thinking person, you'd be a T, and a judging person would be a J. So that would be an ESTJ. So that will be somewhere on this matrix here. ESTJ, bottom left corner. So you can get a feel for where you are. So what people try and do is they try and work out where you are in this matrix, roughly, because it's all, you know, we're trying to quantize something that's an infinite scale in many ways. And then there are some gross trends that can be associated with these types, generally. So that's what you can work out. So what is a type? How do we get there? So, a bit more detail on these things, extroversion and introversion, so you get a feel for what's going on. You'll start to see people that you know in some of these descriptions, and you may even start to see yourself. So, where and how do you get your energy? So if you're an extrovert, you'll be energized by being around others. You thrive in a group. Okay, but if you're an introvert, the opposite. You're much happier, you get more energy from spending time alone with your thoughts. That's how you best get on. Extroverts sometimes enjoy being the centre of attention. Okay? But an introvert will avoid being the centre of attention. And this is sort of where you can start to see how people might get themselves into trouble. Particularly this one tends to think out loud. You know, a brain connected to mouth, no filter in between. And other people here sort of think things through before communicating. So if you've got these 2 extremes talking to each other, someone thinking out loud and communicating with enthusiasm, shouting and getting excited about something, you know, and it's only thinking, it's not a conclusion, will be taken as the conclusion by these people, because they will think about something and then come out with the answer. They're not used to people coming out with all kinds of rubbish and formulating an opinion verbally. So you can see that there might be interactions here that you need to be aware of, just as a start, okay? Expressive, sociable, more low-key and reserved. That's sort of where you are on the scale of extrovert and introvert. You move around the scale, everyone's going to be somewhere on here, and you can move around a little bit. So sensing and intuition, you say the little caption at the top there, the intuitors, I have the best idea to solve world hunger, big picture. And the other extreme is there, okay, but what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Much smaller picture than that. So you can see we've got some information here. You're taking information through your senses and focus on the here and now. Trust in the certain and the concrete. Value realism and common sense. Like to use and hone established skills. You know, like details. The other side of it, future focused, inspiration, influence, imagination and innovation over concreteness. Bored easily after mastering tasks. Some people are bored easily before they master the tasks. Okay, tend to be general and figurative. So again, these 2 extremes are going to maybe clash with each other when you're trying to get information over. Okay, thinking and feeling. Yeah. Okay, so the thinker is much more logical. Step back and apply impersonal analysis to problem solve. What's the best answer for this? You can see the picture at the top there. Whereas the feeling person will be feeling about it, be thinking about empathy and what's going on. Consider the effect of action on others. Whereas the thinker doesn't necessarily do that. And it's emphasized here with truth over tact. I'm going to give you the hard truth, and I'm not going to wrap it up. As important to be tactful as it is to be truthful. Motivated by a desire to be appreciated. Everyone wants to love me. Motivated by a desire for achievement and accomplishment. Do the job. Recognise me for my achievements. Okay. Are you starting to see yourselves in any of these descriptions? A little bit, maybe? Somewhere in the middle, perhaps? I mean, it's fair. Some people will have some of these things and some of these things as well. You know. So, judgment and perception, how you order your life. You know, I made a schedule for every day of our vacation. That's one thing. And, oh no, there's a schedule for every day of our vacation. Can't think of any worse. So they're the two extremes, so it makes you think about that as well. So you need structure. Happiest after making decisions. Made a decision, move on, all great. Work first, play later. Goal and deadline orientate. Like finishing projects. Take deadlines seriously. Need spontaneity. Happiest leaving options open. Don't like decisions. Okay. Enjoy life now, work later. Okay. Like starting new projects, can't finish anything. View deadlines as elastic. Can be a problem, huh? So, which types get on well with each other? So, in reality, all types can get on well. But there are certain types that tend to get on naturally with each other. And it says here, knowing the personality type of a potential business partner or work teammate can help you understand how to work with them in a way that maximizes both your efforts and effectively leverages your unique talents. So a bit of management speak there. So some examples. So if you're an ISTJ and an STP person working together, you know, is this where it gets a bit like astrology? ISTJ personalities are ultra-organized problem solvers who thrive in fact-based work. The other kind, ESTP, is a great balance to this personality, as ESTPs are realistic, analytic thinkers, but also have great people skills and an energy that can make the teams work and make it leap off the page. So, ISTJ is a great behind-the-scenes powerhouse. They do all the work, while this thrives in the role of entrepreneurship. They're jumping up and down, getting everyone excited about it. Get those people in the right roles, works well. Get those two round the wrong way, it's not going to work. It's just play to your strengths. So there's a few more here. Int TP and Int J. So both these two, you'll find it says there that technical are engineering. So Int TP and Int J, the top ones, are sort of engineering-y types. So if you're in engineering, you may find these personalities to be quite abundant within your staff. These are the sort of people you're going to be working with. Both are hyperlogical, but there's an intellectual curiosity that drives innovation, and Int J is more of a leader and will have a decisive nature and strengthening implementation. So it's curiosity against making the decision and going with it. And there are all kinds of other ones that we've got here as well. Ones that you probably won't come across so much in engineering. The ISFPs, nurturers of the world, loyal, adaptable, highly sympathetic to the experience their team makes. They're sort of mother figures. Have a love of helping others, or this other kind does, but they are more open and energetic, seeking excitement in their work and tapping into their innate resourcefulness to create something that both serves people and creates buzz. So these are more creative types, nurturing and creative. Yeah, advertising and that kind of stuff. Sort of people engineers don't get on with. And there's some more there. I'll let you read those through if you want to download the slides and have a look through what's going on. but as it says at the bottom, these are just a few of the many combinations of personalities you may encounter. Get it right, put people in the right roles, play to your strengths, it's all good. Get people in the wrong place, misunderstand them, can be bad. So, maybe you're starting to get an idea now that if you can identify personality types and things, you can shuffle your resources around a little bit to maybe make it more effective. So is there a typical engineer? We're all pretty much engineers here in terms of we're doing an engineering course, be it computer science or triple E. It's all the same kind of stuff, really. So is there a typical engineer? Is there an affinity bias? Yes, there is. And this is called NT. And so NT sits in these categories here. So we've got ENTP, INTJ, INTP, and there's another one, should be another one somewhere. JP, J and P. Yeah, okay. So 4 there. And that is typical of an engineer. Doesn't mean that you can't be an engineer if you're outside of these things. It just means that that's where people tend to gravitate towards. That's what you'll naturally think of. So within these 16 types, we've got all the 4 letters combinations. There are temperaments, and these are sort of the main drivers of your personality. And we've got SJ, SP, NT, and NF. And NT is where the engineers tend to sit. So people have done a lot of research on this, and you can see where we sit in the population. So if you're a true engineer and you sit in the NT category, there's only 2.5% of you in the population, generally. So we're fishing in a small pond, really. And the other one that tends to be in that space as well is the EJ strategists. There's similar kind of stuff. And there's only 1.5% of those. So it's a very narrow sort of pond we're fishing in that respect. And then if you look at it by gender, we end up with 72% of the population are male and 28% female in the NT population. So this maybe goes some way to try and explain why there's a gender imbalance in engineering. It's just as there's natural affinity in that space as well. And also, it doesn't mean that other people in these categories can't be good engineers or work well in that space. It just means that that's the natural sort of flow of things. So, EXP, the engineer, because it's even defined as that. Engineers are easygoing yet private. They are logical and enjoy analysing complex problems. They thrive on the theoretical and like to figure out how things work. They do not like rigid rules and often do not abide by them. They are independent intellectuals. Does that describe you? A bit, probably. Some of you, yes. Some of you, no. But that's where you sort of are, probably. So if you want to know about the other distributions of the other temperaments, if you're interested, then a lot of people are in this sort of SJ category, protectors. And the description here is a very polite description. Dependable, altruistic, honest. Driven by a strict work ethic. Okay, and blah, 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 blah. Basically, they're the workers. Yeah. Equally split, male and female. Creators, another big section. Naturally artistic, brave and adaptable. Appreciate the beauty in nature, fashion and decoration. Their adventurous nature makes them excitable, energetic and spontaneous. Driven by their curiosity and playfulness. They're likeable and popular. They love to tell a good story. So you might know people like that as well. Depending on what personality you are, you might view those slightly differently. Lazy is a word that springs to mind. But they're very general. And then we've got some visionaries. Empathetic, generous and original. Caring individuals who are not only sensitive to the feelings of others, they are idealistic and driven by values they deeply believe in and defend. Okay. And there's a majority female in that category. So it's quite interesting just to look at these things and see where the splits lie and see if we can see if there's anything in this, really. So how do you find out your type? You might know, from these descriptions, you've probably got a reasonable idea. Some people will have a reasonable idea of where they want to be and will try and massage their view of themselves so they fit in whatever category they like the sound of. But all categories are equally valid, and as we said earlier, so you shouldn't try and do that. So you do this Briggs-Myers analysis, but it's not publicly available. because it's commercial. You have to pay for it. So it's going to cost you $50, and you can go to that website and sign up and do it if you like. But there are lots of sort of copycat ones out there that are free. How good they are, I don't know. But for the purposes of experimentation and trying this out, perfectly good for that. So this one, humanmetrics.com, will give you a good indication of your personality. Anything asks you questions, it's not putting electrodes on you or anything like that, it's just asking you a few questions. Completely anonymous, and if anyone's interested about other things about it, there's a link there to a Guardian article on Myers-Briggs from a few years ago. So what happens when you go to this page and try and do what's going on? You get presented with this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that you now understand. You'll get your 4-letter type formula given to you, explains what's going on, and all you have to do is answer questions like this. There's about 60 or 70 questions, rapid fire questions. You just tick the boxes. So things like, you are almost never late for your appointments. You like to be engaged at an active and fast-paced job. You enjoy having a wide circle of acquaintances. You feel involved when watching TV soaps, that kind of question. Not hard, but you've got to be honest with your answers. Don't think about it too much. And there are a lot of them, so it doesn't pay to think about it too much. It could take too long. So whiz through it. And that will give you one of these things then. So they're offering services here. Look at the sort of things they can provide. Candidate assessment and pre-employment screening. Some of you may have done these if you've applied for jobs already, for big organisations in particular. They might run you through some of these tests to find out what kind of a person you are. Shouldn't matter, but there might be something sinister behind it in those organisations, you don't know. Leadership and staff development. We've done them here at the university, different ones, not Briggs Myers, for looking at teamwork within academics, which is oxymoron. Team building, which is sort of what we did in the GDP, hopefully. Career counselling. I have no idea what psychographics are, but you can do that as well if you want. So go to that page, answer all the questions, you'll get an answer back. You don't have to do it now. And just to let you know, there's no requirement to do this test. I'm not expecting anyone to actually do it. And if you do it, I'm not expecting you to share the results. But what is useful is if you do it within the group, and if you're happy to discuss the outcomes within the group, you may then get some insights into how your group has operated. And then you can write about that in the various individual reports, about impact of the group and everything else. We did this test, we discussed it, and it's obvious that we were hitting these things, or we did all this test, we analysed ourselves, this is a complete load of rubbish. Either is fine, it's critical evaluation, it can help you put something into individual report. Because I'm always getting emails 2 days before the hand-in saying, what do we put in this report? Because no one's thought about it. You can put in stuff about intellectual property, you can put in stuff about financing the business, all the things that we talked about. You can put in teamworks, you can put in unconscious bias in your stuff. All the things that we've spoken about in this lecture programme can all go into the impact report. Even if you ask the question, is there any unconscious bias in our project? No, right, good, but you've looked at it, you've thought about it, and you've reported on it. If you say no because of blah, 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 then that's even better, because that's critical evaluation. So if you're struggling about things to write, you shouldn't struggle, because all the stuff we've done in these lectures, you can just ask, does it apply to my project? Yes or no, for these reasons. And that fills up 1,500 words, easily. Also, you might learn something from it. So you can do this test if you want to. You don't have to. Do it amongst yourselves. Not, as the case may be. Doesn't really matter. It's just useful. But I did the test a couple of years ago. I haven't done it recently, so I might change, but maybe not. And I came out as INTJ, which is not unsurprising, I would suggest. And then when you've done the test, it gives you all kinds of other useful stuff about it and where I am on the scale. As you can see, I'm slightly introvert, I'm much innovative, I'm slightly thinking, and I'm on the other end of the scale for judging. So I'm a very judgy person. Bad news for you, because I'm marking reports. So that's sort of what it gives you. So you can see where you are on those scales as well. So you can also see where your extremes may lie. But it classifies you, and that's what's happened there. And then it tells you sort of things that might be what you might want to do there. You click on these things, and you can find out about your full description, which we'll have a look at in a minute. It'll give you some idea of what your career should be. And if you want to play, if you're a business person, you can see how you can improve collaboration, become a better leader, and manage conflicts. Conflicts is really important. People get on with themselves and everyone else in times where there's no stress. Everyone's happy. In a time when there's stress and conflict and pressure, that's when people react in terms of their personalities to each other. And that's when you have a problem. Pre-employment testing. Identify candidate strengths, conduct effective interviews, and assess compatibility. So this is the sort of thing employers are looking at for these things as well. Believe it or not, some people use these tests as a basis of marriage. I think it's going a bit too far, really. But mind you, that's just my personality. So there are lots of ways of trying to describe these things in sort of pictorial form or whatever. So if you go to the MBTI webpage, and there's a link at the bottom of this slide, in various places on this slide, you can classify yourself in terms of drinks. So I'm an Irish coffee, calm on the surface, best ideas are under the surface, well below the surface, and I'm structured apparently. See the layers in the coffee. So that's okay, it's telling you a bit about it. But what's more interesting is the thing on the bottom right, which are stress triggers. These are things that are likely to wind me up. Disorganised work environment. Well, anyone see my office? You know, I'm pretty disorganised, so I'm pretty stressed all the time from that. Micromanaging, not having a goal in mind, lack of initiative, procrastination. Yeah, that's a biggie. Yeah, talking about our feelings. Yeah, logical people don't like to talk about feelings. Okay, and one that really would get me, and this is really true, dismissing my logical decisions and mindless rule followers. They will wind me up big time. And they do, because they exist. So this is probably more interesting than the thing at the top, because it's helping me understand how I react and what might make me react. And you can look at those things and you go, yes or no. If nothing else, it might just enlighten you and you go, actually, yeah, that's right. So I need to remind myself when someone tries to stress trigger me, that's what's happening and I need to calm. Okay. So, to outsiders, int J's may appear to project an aura of definiteness or self-confidence. Self-confidence, sometimes mistaken for arrogance by the less decisive. Okay. So, they will be able to tell you almost immediately whether or not they can help you, because they know. They know what they know. I know what I know. I know what I don't know. And it's important that you recognise that as well. And so, I'm a perfectionist, apparently, with a seemingly endless capacity for improving upon anything that takes their interest, to a point. Because then, if that happened all the time, we get chronically bogged down, as it says there. So, I would apply ruthlessly the criterion, does it work, to everything. Is it good enough? Yes, stop, move on. That is me. I want to make it work properly, as my group has probably realised, but you do enough and you move on. You're not going to get perfect. Okay? So we're system builders and all this kind of stuff. So in the broadest terms, what Indians do tends to be whatever they know. Typical Indian career choices are in the science and engineering, but they can be found wherever a combination of intellectual and incisiveness are required, e.g. law, some areas of academia. I can rise to a management position, if I want to, if I'm willing to invest time in marketing my abilities. Yes, I've got to jump up and down and shout, me, I'm the one. And then I will be rewarded, apparently. Okay. Now, whether you actually want to do that or not is a different question. Okay. All right, okay, so that's sort of where we go. You can look at, you do the test, and then you've got access to all this information about who you might be. So there we go, career choices. I had a look at that, and it said successful careers, no surprises in the fact that we're technology companies, research and development, and maybe corporate lawyers, managers in technology companies and financial institutions. So is this me? So I looked at it and I said yes. I've done the science and engineering for many years. I fit into this mould quite nicely. I have been known to be entrepreneurial. I was the founder of this company called Perpetua, which has apparently transformed railway and fleet management. Not very exciting, but it came from some research here, and we spun it out, and we had eventually 75 engineers working for us before we sold it. So a bit of entrepreneurial, a bit of finance, a bit of law-y stuff, you know, it's mildly interesting. Technical stuff, very interesting. Make it work good enough, sell it on. So we sold that to Hitachi Rail for about, well, they didn't really tell us how much, but I've done a bit of digging, and I think it came out about 20 million. It's not bad, really. Which means that I am rich. No, I'm not. It's a very sad story, and if I had more time, one of my other lectures on how technology makes money discusses the pitfalls of entrepreneurship, setting up businesses, and how someone else makes the money from your ideas. But we haven't got enough time to do that, so that's a bit sad. But if you thought that after 10 years development of this company, building it up, technology, push, 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 sell it onto Hitachi for 20 million, if you think that I made £57 from it, you'd be pretty close. That's what my original 12.5% of the business was worth when we sold it. Because it wasn't 12.5% of the business when we sold it. Because other people put money in. You know, you start off with, I don't know, $250,000 in the business. You spend all that, you generate some value in the business, you then have to get some more money in. So you go to a venture capitalist like Nick that we saw the other week. He values your business at a certain value, and he gives you a certain amount of money. So if he's valued you at £1 million and he gives you £4 million, you now only have 20% of the business in total, and my share was only 12% originally of the 100%, so now it's 12% of 20%. So you can see how it gets diluted, it's called. And then we have another round of funding, B round. Another venture capitalist puts money in and values your business. He tries to value it really small, so that the money he puts in gives him a bigger slice of the pie. We try and talk it up. A lot of value in our business, it's worth this amount of money. You know, the money you're putting in is a small amount of the value of the business. And there's a sort of an argument about that. And that was discussed at the finance talk as well. And you end up then compromising somewhere against this enemy who's trying to beat you down. But as soon as he's put his money in, you're a team. And you're trying to build up the value of the business for the next guy who's trying to put money in 2 years' time when you run out again. And you want to build it up because his money is now going to be diluted, and the next guy comes in. So, and it's all about timing, and it's all about understanding it. But founders don't normally make a lot of money in a business the first time round because they're not experienced against these sharks that are trying to get it. So as I say, if you have more time, we've got a whole lecture on what to do and what not to do on that. But it was fun. So how can this sort of thing help? It's all about building self-awareness in the first place. So if you're self-aware about yourself, you then understand how you might have an impact on other people. If you can make your team self-aware of it, then it becomes more functional and cohesive, particularly in times of stress, which is where you really need it. So each individual in the team needs to understand their own personality and behavioural styles, and more importantly, how that might impact other people in the team. So for that, you need to understand the personalities of the people that you work with. So you can either meet each other halfway, or if you're a leader going forward, or a manager in your next job or whatever, you need to go more than halfway to find out what people are like. So once you understand the different personalities that exist in the group, you can then understand how they might behave in a minute when I've told you how they will behave. You can then start to avoid conflict. You can't avoid it completely, because this is sort of a bit finger in the air, this stuff. But people will be better prepared for someone else's approach to a task, or how they might react to a certain type of comment. Nothing else. Because that's easy to avoid. If you know someone's going to get wound up by you saying something, then don't say it. So it paves the way for better communication, more effective communication between team members. And this can be particularly useful for helping dysfunctional teams work through some of their differences. So hopefully there's no dysfunctional teams here, but occasionally we do get some issues, and this can be looked at with this style of thing. So probably when you leave here, you will come across management training courses, and one of them is on leadership, and it does this thing called the SLII model. Again, it's someone's marketing this as the most widely used leadership training program in the world. It teaches leaders how to build meaningful connections with co-workers that create exponential impact. So not quadratic impact, exponential impact. And we all know exponentials always win, so that's a good thing. So it's all management rubbish, but you can start to sort of read through it. And this is a leadership style where you identify people in one of four categories: D1, D2, D3, D4, where someone starting is low competence but high commitment. You're very keen, but don't know how to do the job. Yeah, start with GDP probably, something like that. Low to some competence, low commitment. When you realise it's hard, you're not committed anymore. Don't want to do this. Don't want to play. Yeah, and then we move on to actually it's not as bad as we thought. Let's get it done. And then eventually you end up as a high competence, high commitment person. So these are the real leaders of the world. So you can map this to PhD. You can map this to a GDP progression. You can map this to a career, which is what normally happens. And then, having identified me as a manager, I've identified who I'm talking to in my team member, one of these four. I can apply one of these management styles to get the best out of them. And all this is predicated on this sort of personality stuff underneath. But I try to hide it and just give you these four things. So, as a leader, you're expected to understand all this stuff and apply it to the people. But you need to identify the sort of people you're dealing with, so you can apply one of the coloured boxes to them. Yeah? And they like coloured boxes because most managers don't have time for, or the ability even to take a lot of this stuff in, as you will find when you leave. So it's all good idea. Can it be affected? I don't know. But some people, you might find some people when you're talking to them say, don't treat me as a D2. And if you haven't been on this leadership program, you won't know what that is. But, a lot of people will have done. And don't treat me like a D2, I think I'm a D3. That's something you might hear sometimes. And so the manager can then say, I don't think you're a D2 because of these reasons. And I'm going to apply my coaching style of leadership to you. And we see how far that gets people. Right, so back to me then. How are we doing for time? Int J belongs to the NT group, as well as that. Who do I get on with? I am likely to struggle with the SF group, okay? And that's four of those, and you can see it's sort of opposite in this diagram here. So in general, in stressful situations, such as when there is a conflict, your most natural behaviour is largely conditioned by your personality. So for example, extroverted feeling types, these ones, are inclined to openly express their feelings, and therefore they may, quite unexpectedly to them, all right, find themselves in a conflict with their co-workers who are a bit more introverted. These other types are often quite convinced of their own conclusions because they've thought about it in advance. Logical conclusion, I'll come to it. And so will have difficulty compromising with people who hold opposing beliefs. Whereas extroverted thinking types, all right, might see the act of compromise, which most people see as a good thing, as something that jeopardizes their authority. They'll dig in. They don't want to compromise. If they know that kind of person, and they know they don't like compromising, and yet they know compromise is a good thing, then maybe they can moderate their behaviour. But in a stressful situation, when people are shouty and reactive, these types of things are likely to be the things you're going to see. People digging in, people taking something as the truth, when these other people are actually just talking wildly before coming to a conclusion. Okay? So, self-awareness really helps. If you at least have an understanding that there are different equally valid viewpoints, you can moderate your response to be constructive rather than destructive and conflictive. Maybe. It takes a lot of time and skill. But at least afterwards, when you calm down, you can go, oh yeah, if only I'd done this. So it all comes down to communication. So different types respond differently to different motivations. Okay, so preferable communication style. The chart below summarises what communication style will be preferable when communicating to various personality types. So if you're going to talk to me as an NT person, and you want me to listen, then you need to be specific, well-reasoned, use visual aids, diagrams, concepts and theories, appeal to my intellectual capabilities, flatter me, give me a challenge, show how the problem in hand or subject of communication fits into the big picture. I want to see the big picture. And this little thing that you're trying to get me to do, I want to see how it fits in. I want to know how it's useful. Then I can maybe do something with it. If I'm trying to talk to an ST type person, again, be specific, confident and well-reasoned, but you've got to demonstrate immediate advantages. Things like profit. Yeah? Provide examples, use visual aids. Okay? If you're going to the SF people, be supportive, expressive and confident, appeal to feelings and emotions. This is not the normal approach for an engineer. Doesn't mean that that approach doesn't work on most of the population. Yeah? But if you're an engineer and you're used to talking to engineers, you've forgotten all about this because of affinity bias. So this is the sort of thing. So you can moderate, if you know you're talking to an SF person, you can moderate your behaviour to talk to this person and get them to do what you want. So this table summarises area of communication or topics that wouldn't be easy to comprehend. So if you're talking to me, and you're talking about subtle differences in feelings, you've heard some gossip or something, and the real one, I mean, this does wind me up, there's no alternative. This is the only way to do it, and you will do it this way. Yeah, that is not going to get the best out of me. Yeah, no good at taking that kind of approach. And you can see other people. So if you go to an SF person and you show them an analysis with pie charts and all kinds of stuff, no, not going to happen. Theories, theoretical scientific principles, nope. Nope. And if something is surprising and contradictory, that's not going to get them going either. Okay, so you can see there's sort of opposites going on. It's sort of obvious when you start to see it presented to you like this, maybe. Right, so you know who you are because you've done the test and everything else. But if the other person's not telling you what they are, or you haven't asked them, or you don't want to ask them, can you tell by looking at them what they are? So you can get some indication from observation. So you can put people into about eight of the boxes, or a sort of a category of 8 anyway. You can make judgments based on the following. So you can get a clue whether they're an S person or an N person by looking at how they rely on facts, numbers, whatever, or if they're inspirational, insight, future orientated, front and back. So you can take a view on that. And for the other ones as well, you can identify a thinking person against a feeling person. Some of these things are quite obvious to try and get to. And an extrovert against an introvert. You can probably get that once you've known a person for a while. You get a feel for where people are in that space there. Okay, so you can get one of these 8 easily by looking at it. The others are less easy to get, but over a period of time, I'm putting a lot of effort into understanding these things. Yes, you can probably get there in the end. So you can get a good idea from knowing someone for a while. I don't think you can get a good idea just by looking at someone. Yeah. Can't judge a book by its cover. You've got to talk to people, and then start to formulate things. But you get there in the end. But keep questioning your decision, because you might be wrong. So, in conclusion then, everybody has a different personality and responds differently in different situations. But you knew that. You've experienced that, even in yourselves. It is possible to formalise this basic personality analysis. Although psychologists are still debating this, but there's something in it, there must be. But by being self-aware, you can understand your response to a type of a situation. You can critically evaluate your response afterwards and go, that's how I responded. Did I respond the right way? Why did I respond that way? What buttons did these other people push on me to make me react in the way I did? So you can start to learn about yourself if you start analysing your responses. You can do the test as well. That gives you a clue. Okay. It's possible to get an estimate of someone's type by observation, a little bit. Keep critically evaluating that as well. By being aware of this, groups and teams can understand how they might best work together and which is the best roles for the people in the team. Maybe. It's really important in stressful situations, and it can improve group harmony if applied sensibly. Everyone's got to buy into it though. It does require experience and effort. It's not an absolute science. People do change their responses with time and experience, which again is also currently being debated by the psychologists as well. So even if you don't use it directly, at least hopefully now you're aware, if you didn't know before, that personality types exist, can be formalised, and are used in industry quite regularly. So even if you're not using it, other people might be using it on you. Quite explicitly, you might have to sit down and do a test. You might want to do that. But it's important to understand there is no right personality. There just are personalities. And everyone is equally valid. Because it would be a really boring world if everyone was the same. So there are many sources out there if you want to investigate this idea further. Some references in the slides, and you might want to use those as a starting point. Okay, and then I like these demotivational posters. So there's one there, a pretty poster and a cute saying, all it takes to motivate you. You probably have a very easy job. Kind robots will be doing soon. And one more. Does that ring any bells? Okay, so I think that's it. Oh no, there's one. Oh, this is the killer. Everyone always says there's no I in team. Everyone works together, no I in team. Turns out there is an I in team, and it's hiding in the A-hole. So always bear that in mind when you leave here as well. If you've got any sense, you'll try and be the I. Push yourself forward. But that depends on your personality. Only you will know that. Okay, so I've stopped there. I hope you found that interesting. That's the end of these little talks. I might do one next semester in week 1 on how to write a good report, because there's always questions about that. But the people who are here are not the people who need the help. So have a nice Christmas.